Derrick, we're here in Oakland. We're at a city-sanctioned tent community that basically you founded and oversee.
Yes.
Well, first let's talk about your homelessness and how you ended up homeless, because you have a very interesting story.
Yeah, it was an interesting road getting here. I worked for over 20 years with the United States Department of Defense as a classified contractor. Had developed some health issues because of my work, forced into retirement in 2007. I was a multimillionaire. I had plenty of money to retire on, so I was fine with retiring, and I was only 47. And so I bought a home in North Carolina on a beautiful lake. 2.5 months later, my financial institution went bankrupt overnight, no warning. And it was devastating.
You lost a lot of money, and for those of you watching this video that don't believe him, I've seen the picture, just the picture of his boat alone. This man had money.
Yeah, I had 3 boats. I had a home here in Oakland, $1 million home here in Oakland, and I bought a $500,000 home in North Carolina.
Yeah, and we should clarify this is years ago, because a $1 million home in Oakland,
in Oakland
probably ain't
nothing.
worth much these days.
No, that's a fixer-upper.
Right.
But I had a home here in one of the most prestigious parts of Oakland, the Grand Lake area. That home was a family home. It was built by my great-grandfather. Yeah. Not built by him, but he commissioned it. And it was in the family the whole time until I retired and moved to North Carolina.
My heart breaks for you, because I lost everything in the '08 crash, but I didn't have millions.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything coming. I had a backup plan to work back there in case things kind of went south, and when things go beyond what your backup plan can do, I was literally left with little to no options. I had about $6,000 in my local checking account. Got by for a little while by renting, or not renting, but taking a title loan out on my boat that I had back there. Ended up losing that because, again, there was no work. Back then, here in the Bay Area, we would see one page of foreclosures. Out there where I was, it was 3 newspaper pages of foreclosures every day. So
yeah, when I first hit the economic crash, they weren't yet saying the R word. So I wish I'd known, because I would have walked away from the house. Instead, I was paying the mortgage, the electric bill, food on my credit card. So when my house finally went into foreclosure, I had this tremendous credit card debt. And so I lost the house anyways. So we try to struggle and survive, and you just crash into homelessness.
We did the exact same thing. I had plenty of credit back then. I had the boat, took out the title loan, got a $25,000 title loan on the boat, and I was hoping to pay that off because I didn't want to lose the boat. Had some work promised, but then because of the time, those jobs fell through, and I fell into homelessness. Came back to the Bay Area. My dad was able to allow me to move back into his home. Just a short time later, he collapsed with colon rectal cancer one night, and by the time I found out what he had, they said he only had 6 months to live. And it was a complete shock to me, because I wasn't aware that my dad was that severely ill, because he hid that. He hid it from me. And he survived about another year and a half. He had some medical insurance because he worked in the shipyards and the federal government, but it wasn't enough to cover his assisted living. Assisted living for him was $3,800 a month. That was 2010 up through 2011, and when he passed away. So $3,800 every month. His insurance, his medical insurance, covered about $1,500, and then he had ongoing medical issues that had to be dealt with regularly, plus transport to the hospital for treatments. And then in his final week of life, he wasn't even mentally around when in his final week, so it was very devastating. And then the court taking the home from me, and that put me out on the street literally, because I just grabbed whatever I was able to salvage from the home, because the court gave me an eviction notice. I had a certain amount of time to clear the house of everything and be gone. And so I did that. Sofa surfed with a lot of friends for up until April of 2013. Went into the shelter up the street, EOCP, East Oakland Community Project, also known as Crossroads. Stayed there for 91 days. They gave me access to a housing list. Housing list was only available through that shelter, and so we didn't know that nobody else had access to it. So I did manage to find a slumlord, and I had a voucher for money that would pay my rent, including that for my dogs that I had at the time, because that was the hardest part, finding anybody who would accept a homeless person and had pets. All of my advocates that work with me at the shelter told me, you got to get the dogs out.
Right. That's a huge issue.
And those dogs have been with me since they were puppies.
Right.
They're like your children.
Right.
You can't give them up. But people say, well, you got to make a choice. It's your dogs or housing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you found a slumlord, and that didn't work out well.
That didn't work out too well. She didn't want to fix the problems. Instead, how she fixed her problem was by evicting me in a record 20 days.
And so then you tenanted right here.
I came out here.
By yourself.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, my first place wasn't the tent. It was literally behind a hedge sandwiched between a plant and the wall of a building right behind you. Quite literally, because that was my first year. And it took them 2 weeks to find me. I was so well hidden inside of that hedge that they couldn't see me. The guards here didn't know I was here. Nobody knew I was here.
Stealth camping.
Camping.
I have a homeless friend that calls it stealth camping.
Yeah. And the other thing was that this area was one of Oakland's premier dumping grounds. And so I had plenty of materials to choose from.
Right.
A lot of materials were brand new. I had contractors dumping off brand new insulation, plywood, plastic. I had couches. So there was all sorts of items to choose from to create my shelter and my home. And then in 2015, when I was diagnosed myself with colorectal cancer, I ended up moving from there and then starting the tent, because during my recovery period, I needed a place to not only be able to lay out for long periods of time, but also have my friends help me to do the daily things that I needed to do, like getting water.
And you were still homeless, recovering.
I'm still homeless.
Yeah, no respite care.
No respite care. Spent 6 days in the hospital. They knew I was homeless. they had a caseworker from City of Oakland and also social services trying to find me housing before they released me.
But there's no housing.
There was no housing.
So then, because I pick on you, because you're here by yourself, and then people start seeing you.
Yeah.
You got to hide better. You stopped hiding good, I guess.
I stopped hiding really well.
So it grew.
And people just started moving in, becoming my neighbors, and we got to know each other. We started a community. Literally, we started a community. We watched out for each other. We shared food. We barbecued together. We at night we'd have security. And we would come up with things for each of us to do, duties, assignments, things that would help further the group.
Yeah. I mean, so there's 35 people that live here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's changed.
No, that's seems to be a pretty constant number here. 35 is comfortable. There are days that we may run a little low, and then some days a little higher.
And several of the people, I think about half, work.
Yep, most of these people work here. They go to jobs Monday through Saturday. Some have restaurant jobs. Some work at gyms. Some we used to have a UPS driver here. I mean, a full-blown UPS driver was homeless, and that says a lot. That how crazy housing is. If a fellow who's making good money as a UPS driver can't afford to rent an apartment here in the town that he works in. That's insane. And so we have grandmothers here, we have young adults here. We fill the whole gamut.
Yeah. So you told me how you got city sanctioned, and what that means is the city provides porta potties. They pick up trash. There's a hand washing station provided by the city. They know you're here. The police aren't going to harass you.
Right.
But how it happened was you were cleaning up the trash, and the city noticed and said, "What's going on here?"
Well, this isn't normal. Normally, homeless people make the trash. They don't clean it up. And I got the taggers moved on, so we removed the taggers. We used to have a lot of crime down here where cars were being stolen and stripped. That no longer exists. We used to have a lot of Johns and prostitutes here throughout the night.
It was just a bad day.
Yeah, it was just a horrible, horrible situation, and police weren't coming here. So that's what originally brought me here, was that there was a lack of anybody supervising the area. And so I set up shop, and then I didn't want the crime, and so I set out to clean it up, and then everybody noticed.
Yeah. And then the city came in and sanctioned you.
The city came in, said, "We like what you're doing. You're not causing a problem. You're solving problems, and we want to help you." Yeah.
And recently, Invisible People sent a reporter here. One thing I was proud of, that I was able to send a reporter into a tent camp to do a positive story, and that got all the way to the city.
Yeah, the city.
And sure, Bart goes by right when it's, thank you, Bart. How do you guys sleep here?
Well, after a while, you just get used to it, and then the other thing is, at midnight, Bart stops.
Oh, okay.
Bart stops at midnight.
And in the morning, it's like alarm clock.
And it starts up again. Our first train is about 5:30 in the morning. So.
Anyways, the story, we got to the city official somehow, and I didn't send it to him. So.
And that the city council actually, how the city council got that was that. Myself and my collective group, we have contacts throughout the city council, and also folks that are in touch with the city council. And so we gave them the website.
Okay, so you sent it to them.
We personally sent it to them.
Got it.
Look at this. Look at this.
I was always wondering how they... I didn't know if they were trolling me or not.
Well, that one, you can thank your new friend Sam Spade.
Oh,
Sam
okay.
Spade actually sent that to Libby Shaft.
Well, thank you, Sam.
And Sam sent it to a few city council people. And then the city council saw that, and then it just went from there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you guys, they assigned you a housing coordinator.
Yes, and then it was about a week later, the city administrators came down here, spoke with me, said, we're going to give you a brand new housing coordinator to help you with housing.
Right.
And so that's where we've been now.
But
And
there is no housing.
there isn't any housing. That's the unfortunate part. So we have a lot of people that we've prioritized. We've been able to get some folks who needed to get off the street. We got them off the street, thank goodness, because hospice issues, literally hospice.
Right.
And so city's been very cooperative in assisting us with that. Getting those folks into housing, but then as housing becomes more available, we want to get everybody here into something.
And you're trying to do something a little more. I hear you're going to make a bid for mayor.
Yes, I'm actually running for City of Oakland mayor in 2022. Things are going really well right now. I'm really happy with the progress. My message is getting out there. A lot of folks are starting to be made aware of all the property that Oakland actually has to build something and get the folks off the streets. Is on there that's been garnering a lot of interest is the 159 acres that was returned back to Oakland about 30 years ago from the federal government. And Oakland turned down a $350 million offer from the Wayans brothers back in 2007 to build a production studio there. So that gives you an idea how greedy the city of Oakland is. And on top of selling it, they want huge tax dollars in the form of the
But you
property
propose
tax.
that you could do something like this, a
Right.
sanctioned 10 city.
Right. We can put together a community of tiny homes, container homes, tents, and then also RV parking, because there's more than enough room to take at least half the folks off the street and get them into some temporary transitional housing, long-term transitional housing, because right now the city only talks about short-term transitional housing, which is 6 months.
Right.
6 months, you're just getting started on the road.
Nobody can get their life back.
Yeah, you
in 6
can't.
months.
You can't. It's impossible. And so we're talking about a long-term, sustainable model for folks in West Oakland. And it's gotten a lot of interest. And
Well, I wish I lived here so I could vote for you.
I wish I had more folks like yourself that understand the situation and the needs for all the housing that could be available.
Yeah.
But the city is choosing profits over people.
Yeah. Well, I've interrupted you for almost 2 weeks now.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
I think we did a couple live streams. We did some feeding, gave away some socks, recorded some videos. I've been saying for, since I met you, that someday I got to come visit.
Yeah,
and here I am.
And here you are.
So I just want to thank you so much for allowing me to interrupt your week, allowing me to get to meet some of the people in your community. So
it's been quite a pleasure having you. It's been fun learning about what you do, Mark.
Yeah. So gotta ask, you know this is coming because you watch and you help us out with our online support group. So Derrick is an admin. And he's homeless, and I would not have something to do with homelessness without homeless people involved. So you knew this was coming. You might even be prepared. What's your 3 wishes?
Housing, and more housing.
You did prepare. You were waiting for me.
And that's what I plan on bringing when I become mayor in 2022. Housing, and more housing.
Great. Really great spending the week with you.
It's been a pleasure having you, Mark. And you're always welcome to come back.
I'm thinking you got to make me a spot here.
Mm-hmm. That's not a problem.
Because I can't afford any of the rent around here. So
I can make a spot right there.
there you go. Well, when you become mayor, I'll just take over yours.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think
I'll just have you on the
mayor
sofa.
can't live in a tent city, right?
No, mayor gets to sleep on the sofa in his office.
Ah.
And then I'll have a sofa next to you,
There you
that
go.
for you.
Yeah, cool.